The moment I saw that DNA test result, my whole world shattered. My perfect marriage, the life I believed was unbreakable, turned out to be built on a lie. The man I trusted with my heart, my daughter, and my future wasn't who I thought he was. But the truth wasn't just about the DNA. It ran far deeper, darker. What I uncovered didn't just destroy our family. It revealed secrets that shook me to my core. This is the story of how one simple test tore everything apart, and what came next was even more devastating. If you've ever trusted someone blindly, this story will hit home. Stay with me as I peel back the layers of lies, betrayal, and heartbreak. You won't believe how far this secret goes, and what I had to do to fight back and protect what truly mattered. My name is Rachel. I'm 41 years old, and for years, I believed I had the perfect life. Married to Grant, a calm and devoted university professor. We shared a beautiful home in Minnesota and raised our daughter Emma with love and care. Our relationship seemed like a fairy tale to outsiders, steady, loving, and grounded in mutual respect. Grant was the kind of husband every woman dreams of. He was thoughtful, always checking in on me and Emma, planning little surprises and making sure our lives ran smoothly. He had this quiet confidence, a calm presence that made me feel safe. I trusted him implicitly. Our marriage was built on routines, morning coffees together, weekend hikes, and quiet dinners filled with laughter. Even when life got busy, Grant made time for us. We were partners in everything: parenting, managing the house, and sharing dreams for the future. I remember how we met in grad school, two ambitious young people drawn together by a shared passion for knowledge and growth. Those early years were full of excitement and hope. We talked about everything, from our careers to raising a family. I always believed that trust and honesty would be the foundation of our life together. Having Emma only deepened that trust. She was the joy of our lives, and watching Grant become a father was heartwarming. He would sing silly songs to her, take her to the park, and patiently help with homework. Our home was filled with warmth, love, and the promise of a lifetime ahead. Nothing ever made me doubt this perfect picture until the DNA test. Looking back, I realize how much I took for granted. I didn't question the small things because I was blinded by the love I thought we shared. Our life was comfortable, predictable, and above all, secure. I believed our family was unbreakable. But beneath the surface, there were cracks I didn't see. Subtle changes that I dismissed as stress or work pressure. Moments when Grant seemed distant, distracted, or withdrawn. At the time, I thought it was temporary. I reassured myself that we were strong enough to weather anything. Our vows promised forever. I held on to that promise with everything I had. But promises don't mean much when truth is hidden. Every day with Emma was a blessing I never took lightly. From the moment she was born, I poured all my love and energy into being the best mother I could be. Our bond was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. A mix of tenderness, laughter, and an unspoken understanding that made us inseparable. Mornings started with our little routine. I'd wake her gently, brushing her soft hair back from her face as she blinked awake. We shared breakfast together, usually pancakes or oatmeal, and I'd help her get ready for school while she chattered about her dreams and plans for the day. Those moments were pure magic, a sanctuary from the busy world outside. Emma was my shadow and my sunshine. We spent hours baking cookies, painting, and reading books curled up on the couch. She loved stories about princesses and brave adventurers, and I loved watching her imagination bloom with every page. When she giggled, it filled the house with warmth. Our evenings were just as precious. After dinner, it was story time and cuddles before bed, a sacred ritual that helped us stay connected no matter what else was happening. I braided her hair while she told me about her day, her voice soft and trusting. That trust was everything. I was fiercely protective of Emma. Being a single mom for the first few months after her birth made me fiercely independent, and when Grant joined fully in our lives, I believed we had built an unshakable team. But more than anything, Emma and I had our own little world. We had secrets and jokes only we understood. Our bond was built on constant communication and love, something I thought was unbreakable. Yet there were times when I noticed subtle changes, not in Emma, but in the atmosphere around us. Grant, who used to be so involved, sometimes seemed distant. But I pushed those feelings aside because nothing was more important than protecting our daughter's happiness. I would catch Emma looking confused when Grant was quiet during dinner, or distracted when playing with her. But Emma never complained. She was too young to understand, and I was determined to keep her world safe. I remember one night in particular when Emma asked me, "Mom, why do my eyes look different from yours and Daddy's?" She was curious, innocent, her head tilted in genuine wonder. I laughed it off, telling her it was just a funny quirk of genetics. But inside, that question stayed with me longer than I expected. Our bond felt so real, so complete. I couldn't imagine life without her. Emma was my anchor through every storm, and I was convinced our connection could survive anything. But sometimes, love isn't enough when secrets lurk in the shadows. The first seed of doubt planted itself quietly, almost unnoticed. It began with small things, details I could have easily ignored or rationalized away. But once noticed, they lingered, whispering warnings I could no longer silence. It started with Grant's growing distance, not the obvious absence but subtle shifts, his eyes avoiding mine, his smiles less frequent and less genuine. At dinner, his laughter sounded forced. When Emma showed him a drawing she'd made, he barely glanced before nodding absently. I tried to tell myself it was just stress or work fatigue. Grant had always been dedicated to his career, and I told myself that was the reason behind the changes. But deep inside, something gnawed at me, an uneasy feeling I couldn't shake. Then came the little things. The phone. He used to leave it lying around, unlocked, with notifications popping up. Now, it was glued to his hand, face down on the table, locked, private. When I asked about it, he brushed me off, saying it was just professional emails and nothing to worry about. His schedule grew mysterious. More conferences and meetings appeared, often last minute. I noticed receipts for hotels and flights that didn't match his academic calendar. One night, I found an unfamiliar perfume scent on his collar, a scent that wasn't mine. Emma noticed too. One evening, she asked me, "Mom, why doesn't Daddy hug me like he used to?" Her words pierced me deeper than I expected. I hugged her tighter, whispering that Daddy was just tired, but her confusion haunted me. The most haunting moment came when Emma asked again about her eyes. "Mom, why don't my eyes look like yours or Daddy's?" she asked softly, searching my face for answers. I smiled weakly, telling her sometimes families look different and that she was perfect just as she was. But inside, my heart raced. I started looking at every little detail. Old photos, family albums, hospital records. I pored over everything, trying to find reassurance but finding more questions. One night, I overheard Grant on the phone, his voice low and hurried. "We need to keep this quiet," he said. "No one can know." I didn't catch the whole conversation, but those words chilled me to the bone. I realized then that the cracks in our perfect life were bigger than I imagined. Something was very wrong, and it wasn't just about an affair. The trust I had built my life on was crumbling, and I was terrified of what the truth might be. The early signs were subtle, almost easy to overlook if I hadn't been paying such close attention. But once they started stacking up, I couldn't ignore the growing unease that settled in my chest every time Grant was around. It began with the little things, the way he answered his phone in another room, his sudden need for privacy over messages, and how he'd quickly end conversations when I walked into the room. At first, I told myself everyone needs space sometimes, especially with the pressures of his job. Then there were the unexplained absences. One evening, he said he had to work late on a project, but I found receipts for a dinner at a restaurant I had never heard him mention. The way he avoided eye contact when I asked about it was the first real crack in his carefully maintained facade. I noticed his clothing changed too, more effort in his appearance, new cologne, grooming habits that hadn't been there before. I wondered if it was for work or someone else. There was an evening when Emma and I waited for him to come home, but he never did. His phone went straight to voicemail, and the excuse of a late meeting felt hollow. My gut screamed that something was wrong, but I struggled to put it into words. Each sign alone could have been brushed off, but the pattern was clear and devastating. The more I looked, the more I found. Subtle changes in his routines, odd behaviors that didn't fit with the man I thought I knew. One night, I found a lipstick stain on his collar. It wasn't mine, and it wasn't Emma's. I confronted him, but he laughed it off, saying it must have been from a colleague. The denial felt like a slap. I began to notice the emotional distance too. When I tried to talk about our relationship, Grant would shut down or change the subject. Our once open communication became guarded and strained. Emma, too, seemed confused by the tension in the house. She clung to me more, sensing something was off even if she didn't understand what. That was when the dread fully set in. I knew I was walking into dangerous territory, but I couldn't turn back. The truth was calling, no matter how painful it would be. Each small sign, each unanswered question pushed me closer to uncovering the betrayal I feared. The unease that had quietly settled in my chest began to roar louder each day. I could no longer pretend that everything was fine, that Grant's strange behavior was just work stress or fatigue. Something deeper was wrong, and my heart screamed for answers. I started observing him like a detective. Every glance at his phone, every sudden hush when I entered the room, every late-night excuse became a clue to a puzzle I was desperate to solve. I noticed how he would shield his screen when I was near, the way he locked his phone obsessively, and how he quickly hid messages or deleted conversations when I happened to glance. I found myself lingering by the kitchen counter, waiting for a chance to see his phone left unattended. I scrolled through fragments of messages, brief texts from unknown numbers, affectionate words quickly erased, calls at odd hours that he refused to explain. Each piece added a brick to the wall of suspicion around me. The paranoia grew. I started checking his emails, receipts, and calendar appointments whenever I had the chance. Hotel bookings appeared without explanation, flight itineraries to places he never mentioned. I even found a lipstick-stained napkin in his jacket pocket once, and though I wanted to confront him immediately, fear held me back. I confided in a close friend, sharing my fears and the growing gulf between Grant and me. She suggested hiring a private investigator, someone who could quietly find the truth without alerting Grant. Reluctantly, I agreed. Days later, the report came. Grant had been seeing someone else for months. The affair was real. The woman wasn't just a random stranger. She was someone I recognized from the neighborhood, connected to people we both knew. The betrayal was not only in his actions, but in how deeply it was woven into the fabric of our lives. I confronted Grant with the evidence. His reaction was cold, almost rehearsed. He denied everything at first, then admitted to the affair but insisted it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. Yet, beneath his words, I sensed a deeper truth he wasn't telling. The more I pressed, the more he withdrew. Our conversations became battlegrounds. I was desperate for honesty. He was desperate to protect his lies. Through it all, Emma noticed the tension. Her questions became more frequent, her smiles less genuine. One day she asked, "Mom, why does Daddy look sad all the time?" I had no answer that could comfort her. Despite the pain, I couldn't turn away. I was determined to uncover every secret, no matter how painful. I needed to know the full truth, for myself and for Emma. Each new discovery was a wound, but also a step toward freedom. I knew the path ahead would be hard, but I was ready to face whatever came next. The day I confronted Grant was the day everything changed. I could no longer live in the shadows of doubt and silence. The weight of the lies was crushing me, and I knew I had to face him, no matter the cost. I waited until Emma was asleep before calling him home early. When he walked through the door, tired and unsuspecting, I saw the same man I had loved for years. Yet something was irrevocably broken between us. I sat him down in the living room, heart pounding, voice trembling but steady. "Grant, I know," I said simply. "I know about the affair. I found out everything." His face froze, a flicker of panic in his eyes. For a moment, he said nothing, the silence louder than any accusation. Then came the flood of excuses, stress, loneliness, mistakes he regretted, but his words felt hollow. I saw the cracks beneath his carefully constructed facade, the coldness he tried to hide. I asked the questions I'd been holding back for months. Why? How long? Was Emma's father really him? Each question cut deeper than the last. Grant's calm mask shattered. He looked away, ashamed and angry. Then, in a voice low and bitter, he revealed the truth that shattered me completely. The DNA test wasn't just a shock because of the affair. It was because he wasn't Eli's biological father. That night, the perfect marriage I'd believed in collapsed. The trust, the love, the future we'd dreamed of, all lies. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the coldness in his eyes as he admitted he never truly loved me or our child. He confessed to keeping secrets not just about the affair, but about his feelings, about how he'd planned to leave everything behind. He'd used the DNA revelation as a way to control me, to manipulate our assets and push for a divorce. I was numb, heartbroken, and furious all at once. The man I'd trusted with my life was a stranger, one who had carefully crafted a web of lies around me. But I wasn't going to let him win. With every ounce of strength left, I vowed to fight for my daughter, for myself, and for the truth. This moment of confrontation wasn't the end. It was the beginning of my journey to reclaim my life. The moment Grant left that night, the silence he left behind screamed louder than any words ever could. Our home, once filled with warmth and laughter, suddenly felt cold and empty, an echo chamber of broken promises and shattered dreams. The truth he revealed wasn't just a betrayal. It was a complete unraveling of everything I believed in. In the days that followed, I found myself trapped in a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion, and an aching sense of loss. The man I had loved and trusted was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. The DNA test had not only shattered my marriage, but also tore apart the foundation of our family. The question that haunted me constantly: if Grant wasn't Eli's biological father, who was? Legal papers soon arrived, a stark reminder that the fight wasn't over. Grant was already moving to protect himself, attempting to sever ties and take control of our assets. I felt cornered, vulnerable, but determined not to be defeated. I knew this would be a battle, not just in court, but for my dignity, my daughter's future, and my own sanity. The hardest part was making choices that no one ever wants to face. Should I fight for the marriage, or was it time to let go? The love I once felt seemed like a distant memory, replaced by the cold reality of his deception. Yet, part of me clung to the hope that somewhere beneath the lies, the man I knew was still there. But the truth was harsh. Grant admitted he never truly loved Eli, and worse, he had used the DNA revelation as a weapon to control me, to force a separation, to escape responsibility. His betrayal was calculated and cruel. Friends and family rallied around me, but their sympathy couldn't fill the void. I found myself questioning everything: my judgment, my worth, even my ability to protect my daughter. Nights were the hardest, filled with restless thoughts and the haunting silence of our broken home. Seeking strength, I reached out to lawyers and counselors, determined to understand my rights and find a path forward. Every meeting was exhausting, but empowering. I learned that survival meant setting firm boundaries and fighting relentlessly, not just for myself, but for Eli. Forgiveness seemed impossible at first, but I realized it wasn't about Grant. It was about freeing myself from the poison of anger and bitterness. Holding on to hate would only chain me to the past. Slowly, I began to reclaim my life. I focused on the small victories: winning temporary custody, securing finances, rebuilding a sense of normalcy for Eli. It wasn't easy, and there were setbacks, but with each step, I grew stronger. This was my crossroads, the moment when I decided not to let betrayal define me. I chose to rise from the ashes, to build a new future grounded in truth, love, and resilience. Though the road ahead was uncertain, I knew one thing for sure: I was no longer a victim. I was a fighter, a mother willing to do whatever it took to protect her child and rebuild her life. And that choice changed everything. The revelation that Grant wasn't Eli's biological father hit me like a thunderclap. I thought nothing could shake me more. But the real twist, the devastating truth buried beneath layers of lies, was yet to come. For days, I was consumed by the question: if Grant wasn't Eli's father, then who was? I began digging deeper, desperate for answers. I scoured hospital records, medical files, and every scrap of information I could find. My world started to unravel piece by piece. One afternoon, I got a call from the hospital's records department. They informed me of a clerical error, a rare but serious mix-up at the maternity ward. 2 newborns had been switched at birth. My heart stopped. Could it be? Was it possible that Eli wasn't even mine to begin with? I demanded further investigation. With the help of a private investigator, I uncovered a horrifying truth. Eli had been switched with another baby, and the real biological mother was a woman from a neighboring town. This revelation tore through me. The DNA test, the betrayal, the shattered marriage. It was all tangled in a nightmare far worse than I imagined. The child I loved with all my heart wasn't biologically mine. Yet, he was my son in every way that mattered. When I confronted Grant with this information, his reaction was chilling. He wasn't just hurt or shocked. He was calculating. It became clear he had known or suspected this truth much earlier. His affair and lies were part of a plan to manipulate the situation, to distance himself from a family he never truly wanted. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a twisted game of control and deception. The revelation changed everything. I realized my fight wasn't just against infidelity, but against a man who used secrets and lies to control lives. Despite the shock, I found clarity. Eli was my son. No DNA test could change the love and bond we shared. The woman I had raised, the boy who called me mom, was my family. The truth set me free. It gave me the strength to stand up, fight for Eli, and rebuild our lives on my terms. This twist, this cruel, unexpected twist, was the catalyst for my ultimate transformation. I was no longer a victim trapped in lies, but a mother ready to fight for the truth and for the family I chose. The storm had finally passed, but its marks remained deeply etched in my heart and soul. I was no longer the woman who had blindly trusted, the wife who had believed in a perfect marriage. The person staring back at me in the mirror was forged through pain, betrayal, and tears, but also through resilience, courage, and an unwavering love for my son. Looking at Eli, I realized biology was only part of our story. The countless sleepless nights, the laughter, the scraped knees I had bandaged, the whispered, "I love yous" in the dark. All these made him my son beyond any DNA test. That truth anchored me amid the chaos. The legal battles loomed large. Grant fought to keep control of assets, of custody, of the narrative. Each courtroom appearance was exhausting, filled with tension and raw emotions. But I entered every session armed with determination and an unbreakable resolve. I was no longer a victim. I was a warrior, fighting for my family's future. Outside the courtroom, my world slowly rebuilt itself. Friends and family rallied around me, offering support in ways both big and small. Their encouragement reminded me that I wasn't alone in this fight. Therapy became a lifeline, helping me process the trauma and rediscover who I was beneath the layers of hurt. Forgiveness was the hardest lesson. Not to absolve Grant of his betrayals, but to free myself from the corrosive weight of anger and bitterness. Forgiving meant reclaiming my peace and focusing on what truly mattered: me and Eli. The days were far from perfect. There were moments of loneliness, nights filled with doubt and fear. But each sunrise was a promise, a new chance to heal, to rebuild, and to grow stronger. I found joy again in the little things. Watching Eli chase butterflies in the garden, hearing his laughter echo through the house, sharing stories about heroes and adventures. These moments stitched my heart back together. I began setting goals, envisioning a future where Eli and I thrived. I returned to passions I had set aside: writing, volunteering, even exploring new friendships. Life wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about living fully, fiercely. The betrayal taught me harsh truths, but also beautiful ones. I learned that love is choice, not just biology. That strength often comes disguised as vulnerability. That endings are just beginnings in disguise. Through heartbreak, I found hope. Through loss, I found courage. Through pain, I found myself. This was not the ending I had imagined, but it was the beginning I needed. And for the first time in a long time, I was truly free. The journey through betrayal and heartbreak was the darkest chapter of my life, but it also became the beginning of my greatest transformation. I emerged from the ashes not just as a survivor, but as a woman who reclaimed her power, her joy, and her hope. I learned that betrayal, as painful as it is, does not define us. What defines us is how we respond. I chose to rise, to fight for the life and family I love, to protect Eli not just as my son by choice, but as my heart. In the months after the storm, I rebuilt a life grounded in honesty and love. Eli and I grew closer than ever. The bond between us, forged through trials, became unbreakable. I saw him thrive, happy, confident, and surrounded by people who loved him fiercely. I also found myself again. I pursued passions long set aside, reconnecting with old friends and building new relationships rooted in trust and respect. I learned to trust myself, to set boundaries, to say no, and to prioritize my well-being. The legal battles with Grant eventually settled. I secured full custody of Eli and a fair settlement that allowed us to live comfortably and peacefully. Though the process was painful, I faced it with courage and clarity, never losing sight of what mattered most. What surprised me most was the peace I found in forgiveness, not for Grant, but for myself. Forgiving freed me from the chains of anger and bitterness. It opened my heart to love again, not just for Eli, but for life itself. Today, my home is filled with laughter and hope. The scars of the past remain, but they no longer control me. They are reminders of my strength and resilience. I share my story not because it's unique, but because it's real. To anyone walking through pain and betrayal, I want you to know there is light ahead. Healing is possible. You can rebuild, rediscover joy, and create a future brighter than you ever imagined. The end of one story is the beginning of another, one where you are the author. Choose hope, choose love, choose you, because sometimes the hardest endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings.